High Level is a full CRM and marketing platform, and I've used some of the best in the SaaS industry. And we are live from LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and Instagram. It's Reveting's Wednesday. Welcome to Wednesday, Revenue Party people. We've got our hot topics and our hot guests, so we're going to get right into it. But before I have to talk about delegating. And delegating is something you have to do as you grow. And I'm learning this more and more as we grew. And, there's always some setbacks in that when you are not delegating properly. So make sure that you are, handing off the tasks that you're doing. You have to organize yourself out of your job to continue to grow. Like we can't always just keep doing the same thing. We have to take on new things, right? So in order to do that, we have to find other skilled people. And Cherry Assistant is really great about figuring out what it is that you need, be it a bookkeeper, an executive assistant, maybe something else, and then helping you find that exact person who speaks your language, works your hours, has those skills with the tools you use somewhere around the world. They exist, and Cherry Assistant will help you find them. Just scan that QR code right here and go check out Cherry Assistant. Let them know that you heard about them through WinsDay for $250 off your first month of a virtual assistant, and just get placed with a virtual assistant today so that you can start getting help. I know some of you are probably, trying to clean up your inboxes. There's so much we want to do before the end of the year, get out some social posts, work with Cherry Assistant, and, just start to feel a little bit more free in 2026 with a breath of fresh air and all of those tasks taken care of. Other than that, I like to mention High Level because we use High Level here in-house. Our clients know of it as app.reveting.com because we've white labeled it. But High Level is a full service marketing automation platform and CRM all in one solution for you to house your data, your CRM, and automate and speak to the right people at the right time via email, SMS, WhatsApp, social media posts, all in one place, even building your website and your landing page there too. And we know this because we do it for ourselves and our clients in app.reveting.com. Now, if you are looking to get started with a CRM or marketing automation platform and you don't want to spend ridiculous amounts of money, just for a dedicated IP to send marketing emails or something, which was why I started shopping around and how I found High Level. Just try out this 30-day free trial with them. And if you do decide to get started, it's only $97 a month and you get 3 accounts. I mean, just think about the CRMs you've used in your time, I don't know, wherever you work. So put in the comments, who's here watching? What CRMs have you used? Have you tried High Level? We want to hear from you. But try, if you haven't, go to reveting.com/High Level if you're listening to this on podcast later on, and try something new. It's only $97 a month, but you get 30 days free on my affiliate link. And if you do end up trying, feel free to reach out because I want to help you succeed. Anyway, so yes, thank you for the ticker, reveting.com/high level. Go check it out. Other than that, let's get into today's episode because we have some really awesome guests who are going to be introducing themselves. So let's bring them up on stage. What do you say, Layla? We've got Katherine and Amira. Thank you so much for being here with us. Really appreciate it. Let's get into our intro so we can learn more about you. So, Amira, could you kick us off with your minute intro? We want to hear your full life story from birth to what brought you to now. And of course, as we talked about pre-show, we don't want the LinkedIn resume. We want to know the real you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see, all the way from birth. I am the second eldest of 8 children, 4 boys, 4 girls. Yeah, no twins, no adoptions, not a blended family. And I always say that because people will inevitably ask, but no, all 8 of us are siblings from the same mom and dad. And I grew up on a tiny island that is 30 miles long, 8 miles wide in the middle of the Pacific called Guam, where America's Day begins, because we're right there on the equator, where it is summer year round. And I get the pleasure every day of doing something I was really good at as a kid, of just communicating. One of the reasons I lived on that tiny island is my parents were actually missionaries. And if you know anything about missionary kids, you're often in front of an audience, you're thrust in front of adults and told to go speak, to go present, or do a play or a skit. And so communications and storytelling have always been really inherent to who I am. And I love that I get to do that in the world of marketing and communications today because of that very distinct upbringing.
I love that. I mean, that makes you so interesting. Thank you for sharing that. And, that's why I love that section, because now we get to know you a little bit more, and you just bring extra, I don't know, knowledge and expertise and culture to the table. So I really appreciate that. And Katherine, we'd love to hear the same from you. Like, what's your full life story from birth to what brought you to now?
Thank you so much, Amir. It was a pleasure to hear a glimpse into your life story. It sounds like such a fascinating upbringing, and it makes so much sense. I resonate so much with what you said around storytelling. I think it's something that many of us kind of have a pull or draw towards from an early age. So my story is I was born in Finland, and I ended up growing up all over the world, traveling a lot as a child until I settled down in Australia. And funnily enough, my sister was born in Singapore, and so she has more of a UK accent because she went to an international school with a UK teacher, whereas I went to an American led school. So it's funny because people are like, oh, you're related, but you sound so different. And that really, I think, is a glimpse into how communication also informed my upbringing, but also the importance of having a multicultural exposure at a young age. And it definitely helps to inform any kind of marketing that I do today, and helps me, see the world in a very different way.
That's so beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, Katherine. I love this. This is probably one of my favorite parts about the show, because we just get to know you so much more, and it just sets the stage for the topics, which, speaking of, let's get into that first topic. And I believe, Amira, this might be your topic: when marketing becomes propaganda, the hidden architecture behind a brand's message. Could you kick us off here?
Yeah, absolutely. So this is one of my favorite topics. And one of the things I also get to spend my time doing is teaching as a professor at Cal State East Bay. And I will often kick my marketing and communications class off asking my students a question. So I'll do that with all of our friends here today. And I will just simply ask them, by show of hands, how many of you would say that breakfast is the most important meal of the day? And usually there are many hands raised. And then I'll follow up with, why do we eat bacon and eggs for breakfast? And why do we deem it the most important meal of the day? Not oatmeal, not yogurt, but bacon and eggs. And the answer, unfortunately, isn't nutrition, it's propaganda. And that always blows some minds if you don't already know this story. But in the 1920s, a meat packing company had too much bacon and not enough buyers. And they called in Edward Bernays, the father of public relations. And he didn't just buy billboards saying bacon is tasty. That would be too obvious. Instead, he asked doctors if a hearty breakfast was better than a light one. And back in those days, we were working like 16-hour days, so it was grueling. And most of those doctors said, yeah, that would help you work longer hours. And so Edward Bernays took that endorsement from physicians, plastered it across newspapers, billboards, radio, and attached bacon to health, to family, and even to patriotism. And suddenly bacon and eggs weren't just food, they were virtue. So one man, one campaign, and 100 years later, we still believe and move through the world as if bacon is important to breakfast and breakfast is the most important meal of the day. It is the all-American breakfast that you can get at many a diner. And that's the kind of influence that I want us to consider, think about, and talk about. Not just selling products, but selling the self. And there's actually a great YouTube documentary called The Century of Self that features this story about Edward Bernays and his influence. And the thing about Edward Bernays, his genius was very simple, right? He didn't sell the thing. He would sell who the buyer becomes. So he borrowed from his uncle, Sigmund Freud, and the world of psychology and targeted our subconscious minds. And Edward Bernays knew that people wouldn't just buy with logic, but we buy with emotion, with longing. So cigarettes, for example, he branded them torches of freedom, and he linked women's liberation to smoking. A puff wasn't just nicotine, it was feminism. Cars is another example. He sold them as masculinity on wheels. Bigger, louder engines weren't about horsepower. They were about virility, strength, manliness. And then war was one of the ones he was most known for. He reframed complex geopolitics into moral crusades. And supporting war by the American people wasn't just strategy, it was patriotism. And it said a lot about who you were. And Edward Bernays figured out that identity is ultimately currency. And the campaign was never about the product. It was about the story that you could and would eventually tell.
That is incredible. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing, especially the part about propaganda. I would love to hear from the audience. I saw we had Brian here. I thought we had David here. What comes to mind when you all think about propaganda? My mind typically goes to politics, not breakfast, I will admit. But I love the story about breakfast and bacon. What a bunch of propaganda. And so now we're all, I mean, I don't eat pork, but many people are eating bacon every day for breakfast. Yeah. I'm curious, Katherine, what is your take on all of that?
Yeah, it's super fascinating, not surprising to hear, but it's the first time I've heard it shaped in that way. And I think you described it so beautifully. Funnily enough, it seems like everywhere in the world, breakfast seems to be influencing something. So to give you an Australian example, we have something called Nutrigrain, and it's heavily promoted by athletes, and it's meant to, it's got a lot of like strong looking people on the covers. And I don't know the links between propaganda specifically, but it has very much become synonymous with like Australian strength and like, to kind of be great in some capacity. So yeah, I think cereal is a very interesting case study for marketing for sure.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I
don't know if anyone's ever gotten into propaganda on the show. I mean, we talk about marketing.
Yeah.
And
I think a lot of it was coming up from my classes, but also just peers in the space because of some controversial ads recently, American Eagle, Dunkin' Donuts. That's a little bit of where it came from, was sort of this idea of, products aren't just things to buy, but they suddenly become extensions of who we are, who we want to be, and what we believe is normal or how we feel like we belong. And that's sort of the tie to propaganda of, we aren't just buying products, we're buying a person that we want to be, a future that we want for ourselves. And as marketers, I just think that we have to be really ethical and careful about how we wield our powerful tools, because they do more than shape people's buying choices. They actually shape culture, and they shape what people believe about themselves, about their neighbor, and about the world around them.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, that whole like cigarette campaign is kind of messed up. And it was like trying to get people to think that like, oh, you're a feminist because you smoke cigarettes. I mean,
It's so unhealthy
so
for you.
far-fetched.
Very far-fetched.
The 60s, maybe the 70s.
Earlier, even the 30s and 40s and into the 60s. And then even after the Torches of Freedom came the Marlboro, I can never say those cigarettes' name, the Marlboro Man. And it was a cowboy, right, under a wide open sky, and smoking, again, wasn't about nicotine. It was about this sort of rugged independence. And yet, you know, these are things that actually, you know, give you lung cancer and aren't good for you.
It makes me wonder, like, what are the modern versions of that? Like, you know,
I think American Eagle ad was one.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
On that as well, I was going to say, I don't know if you're both familiar with the scandal that happened recently with Sydney Sweeney, but she was basically advertising "My jeans are blue," and it was a kind of double pun in terms of she was advertising denim, but the implications of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed, Aryan-looking person saying this in today's current political culture had a very strong backlash. And I think this is a really great example of how much more nuanced today's audience is. We don't, things that would typically kind of fly back in the day, we would pick up on that a lot faster now. So I think there's still a lot of subtle marketing tactics that people miss, but if it's that obvious, people are going to hopefully call it out and say, hang on a second, what are we really advertising here? So yeah, it's a very timely conversation to be having. Thank you, Amira.
Yeah, of course. No, that's exactly the one. That's the biggest topic of conversation. And it's still going like months later. It's still in the news about those jeans. And so people are attuned and they are thinking with their critical thinking caps, which is good. And why I talk about the propaganda piece with my students so much of, you know, think about what you're really buying and think about those ads that you see, and maybe ask a couple more questions about the brands you might be aligning yourself to. And is that really the world you want to live in and the person that you want to be?
It is a good point to make. I mean, it kind of reminds me of something that I was posting in one of my communities earlier, which, by the way, I have 2 free WhatsApp communities. Would love to have both of you in there. One's co-ed, one is just women. It's mostly people growing on LinkedIn and doing shows. But this morning I got triggered probably because I got an email from a brand. I get this all the time too. Like, brands will want to pay me a certain amount of money to post for them. And it's like, oh, I'll give you $100 for a post, which is like, flat. You want me to go be a walking billboard for $100? Like, so that was sort of my point in there, is like, be careful who you align with. I would never do a post for 100. I used to do that. And what I found is, like, I started losing engagement because people saw me as just like posting ads, and I would do it for brands that I'd never heard of. But, you know, once I just started to like stick to the brands I know and I use, like High Level and Cherry Assistant, I use them. I know they're reputable. I get, you know, good value out of promoting them. It's way more than $100 a post. You know, it's like, I don't know, like, yeah, just be careful out there, because influencers and even micro influencers are becoming a new thing, and brands are ready. You know, there's 100 AI brands and they're all ready to pay you $15 a post to post for them. But at the end of the day, your personal brand is worth way more than like who you're associating with. But I digress. I could go on and on. Let's get into our next topic, which I know is Katherine's topic: simple steps to measure meaningful ROI. This is something I think I personally need to hear about. So can you kick us off on this one, Katherine? I'm looking forward to hearing it.
Thank you. Yes. And so much to say about like the influencing space and being a bit more savvy around usage of what we're promoting and being mindful of that. So thank you for sharing. In answer to the questions about simple steps to measure ROI, I've been thinking a lot about this because we work with a lot of impact-driven founders, and so many people, especially now who start a business, they are interested in creating a impact beyond just themselves, whether that be because they want their kids to grow up in a better world or because something happened to them and they were so frustrated by that situation that they just want to solve this problem so no one else could experience the same struggles that they did. And so there is this kind of intrinsic need to create impact through our businesses, especially for kind of the businesses that we're seeing rise up. And so with that in mind, I am very conscious of ways that we can be starting to open up this conversation and tangibly measure ROI beyond just the one bottom line. And one of the ways to start thinking about this is when you first created your business and you imagined that impact, how many people were you thinking of impacting? And then you can basically compare that with your current clients that you've worked with. So it might be that if you're doing one-to-one or if you're doing a course, you may have impacted one person, but maybe that person shared it with their community and that impacted more. And so when we're looking at measuring these kind of metrics, there needs to be a deeper conversation around not just the first layer of the people that you're reaching, but also how many other people that they're sharing with or passing on the information or knowledge and who that could be impacting. And so something that I would encourage everyone to think about is when you're developing any kind of spreadsheet, ROI map for 2026, go back to that original why of why you started the business and what is motivating you to do your day-to-day, and consider and put that number, whether it be a certain amount of people you want to help or a certain impact-driven goal, and try and cross-compare it to your financial goal or the current metrics that you typically see. And what I bet is when your impact is going up, even if it's just one person who messaged you saying, this changed my life, or I can't believe this, I didn't know about this sooner, chances are there will be a correlation with other metrics as well. And so often when you're feeling unmotivated or when you've hit a wall in your business, instead of just looking at the raw data or the ROI side of things, go back to that impact piece, because that's what's going to help fuel and carry you through and give you new ideas of how to support the typical bottom line metrics that we usually talk about in marketing and business.
Such great points. I see you nodding, Amira. Like, what's your take on all that?
Yeah, I mean, it made me immediately think about the reason we exist as communicators and marketers, which is behavior change, right? And to your point about don't just think about one level of ROI or the bottom line, but there are so many other avenues that you could go down. And ROI has to include reach, like you said, trust, and then the behavior change comes from the trust that's created. And the first place my mind went also was to B Corps. And an underlying message I heard in what you said was something like, I think about a corporation or a business like Ben & Jerry's that is very social impact driven, and they don't just start with, what campaign do we want to run? But then they go deeper and ask the question of, we start with, what needs to change in the world and for whom. And that kind of drives some of the campaigns, the ideas, and the way that they run their business. And the impact spreads to other people in terms of their buying choices, the brands that they love, and the values that they hold. And their behavior changes based on some of the things they learn from a brand like that, that's thinking about multiple kinds of ROI, not just how many tubs of ice cream can we sell.
Yes, very true. Well said.
Yeah, I love that. Very well said. And I like how you said, it comes down to what we're all here for, which is behavior change. And sometimes I think we forget about that, like that in marketing and even within our own teams, that's a lot of what we're trying to do. And people can sometimes be like herding cats. So having that, I don't want to say propaganda or the political background, the savviness, the like psychological savviness is sort of what we need. But like, Katherine, I want to pass this back to you. Like, so for the teams who are like looking to simplify their ROI, like where do we even begin?
Simplify in terms of that impact piece?
Yeah. Like,
Yes.
just to make it easier.
So one of the things that I've been exploring lately is, for a lot of marketers, we track all the website traffic, the click-through rates, the open rates, but something that we don't track clearly enough is what happens when that person purchases and then gives a good review, or says this product changed my life or improved my life in some capacity. How much more likely are they to increase word of mouth marketing? How much more likely are they to become brand ambassadors? And more importantly, how much more likely are they to then repeat that purchase? Those numbers, to my knowledge, don't yet exist in a tangible way. And a lot of the platforms and CRM tools that we've been talking about also don't track that. It's kind of like, you've made a purchase, that's it. But I feel like there's a bigger conversation to be had around the direct correlation between someone being happy with that experience and then feeding it back into the ecosystem of, sharing that message and getting even broader in terms of the wider impact and how much more that service or product can support others. So I wish there was a tool right now, but as far as I'm aware, I haven't found one. So if anyone in the comments knows about this, please let me know, because I think that marketers need to be thinking beyond just the final endpoint of customer purchase. Great, we've done our piece, and that full cycle or customer journey of, okay, well, what really happened with that after purchase experience, and how can we really add that to our impact measurements?
Yeah, and the reason the review becomes so important is, yes, because we want to have credibility with the community, but also because then maybe it signals, a repeat purchase. And then, it makes me think of the winning by design method, which is basically like, we typically think of one funnel being like one funnel. But if you think of it as like a bow tie, it's like, okay, so we close that one win, but then we want them to buy again and again and again and again, and we want to keep them coming back. And a lot of the time, that's our low-hanging fruit in a business, are the people who've already purchased. And us marketers, we want to keep going out and acquiring new customers, and that's expensive. But if we just market to the people who we know are sold, like, that can be a signal. I don't know. Has anyone in the comments heard of the winning by design method? I know, at least for SaaS, it's a really interesting model, just because a lot of the time we forget about the recurring revenue. We could forget about our existing customers, and that's our low-hanging fruit, where we should be focusing to look at upgrades, because they're already happy. And maybe there's more we can be doing for them that would be cheaper for us to acquire that revenue than to go out and run some other campaign, sell some new cold campaign, get them in the door, book that call. I mean, it's a lot to bring a new business. And I know if you're talking about like e-com, even still, it's like you might not have booked meetings, but you're still having to do all of that work to like find those new people. But yeah, I don't know of any tools that, I know, Amira, maybe you do, any tools that basically say, okay, they purchased this and then they got a review. Like, how do we track that?
Oh, I wish I did.
That'd be great.
Yes. And the reason why it comes up is because a lot of the founders we work with are getting featured in magazines. They're getting asked, what are your metrics, not just for obviously, business metrics and the typical bottom line that we think of, but also how many people have you impacted? What is your net promoter score is one of the obvious ones, but more importantly, like, what is the tangible ways that this person's life has been positively impacted? And they just don't know. They're like, we're getting great results, but we can't actually give you that number. We can't give you a tangible, measurable way to show this. And I think that would be so powerful.
Yeah. Net promoter score doesn't really give you that. You do need like qualitative data. So like content analysis of all the reviews would, I guess, be the best way. I don't know. But yeah, this is all really interesting. And we have two more really interesting topics to get to. I know our third topic, which Amira will be kicking off here soon when we come back after these messages, will be From Me to We, Building Belonging in a World of Manufactured Consent. And we'll get into that right after this brief message from Cherry Assistant.
This is Mike, also known as Clean with Mike on Twitter. Mike hired a virtual assistant from Cherry Assistant about 2 years ago. Now he has a $50K per month business, fully managed by a remote operator, in South Africa. His VA from South Africa does the following: closing inbound leads on the phone, Yelp and Google and Facebook, manages his CRM on Gulf High Level, deals with rescheduling, cancellations, any issues, hires and manages the cleaners, and sends them daily reports and updates. Mike has a fully cash flowing business managed by a remote operator for only $8 an hour. You can also hire a US equivalent worker in the Philippines, South Africa, Latin America for a fraction of the cost with Cherry Assistant. Be like Mike and grow your business with offshore staff.
All right. So if you are not seeing the screen, you're on podcast, we're showing a menu right now of services they offer, including but not limited to lead generation, CRM management, prospecting assistance, sales presentation preparation, data entry and cleanup, customer support, project management assistance, and so much more. Definitely check it out. There's a QR code on the screen, but if you're tuning in on podcast, just go to cherryassistant.com and sign up to talk to them. Let them know that you heard about them through WinsDay, and you'll get $250 off your first month. But let's make sure and get into that third topic, which was like me to we, or was it we? Yeah, from me to we. Building belonging in a world of manufactured consent. Can you kick us off on this one, Amira?
Yes. So the first thing is go get this book. It's called Manufacturing Consent by Edward Herman and Noam Chomsky, and it is the political economy of the mass media. It's a really great book. It's one that I go back to. It's really thick and chunky, but it's worth the read. So a few more examples to kind of root you in things that seem normalized to us that you would know. So think about the Got Milk ads. Right? Celebrities with mustaches, and the pitch was calcium and that it was cool. So you have Britney Spears, Michael Jordan, Whoopi Goldberg, all telling you that milk wasn't just a drink, it was a lifestyle. And then something like don't mess with Texas. A lot of people don't know the origin stories of that little phrase, but it wasn't just a PSA about litter. And that is what it is. A lot of people don't know. The state of Texas was spending millions of dollars on litter. And so they created a campaign for young men. It was a pride campaign. They reframed picking up trash as protecting the honor of Texas, especially appealing to young men. And masculinity was suddenly tied to putting garbage in a can. And so I bring up those examples because it goes to this point about manufacturing consent and the Sydney Sweeney ads of it all that are in the news recently. But Edward Bernays, right, he created the blueprint for how we conduct so much in communications and marketing and advertising today. He tapped into identity, emotion, and social proof to reshape what feels normal and lead the behaviors of the masses. And he knew that people would follow. So none of these ideas or campaigns were accidents. They were engineered to get us to behave a certain way, hence the manufactured consent piece. And the thing is, once you see a pattern, you can't unsee it. And in campaign after campaign, behavior shifts not because of rational argument, but because identity is nudged, normalized, and commodified. And that's what so many of these ads are doing for and with us. So I talked about the bacon example and the cowboys and the cigarettes, but let's say a clothing brand launches a campaign with a young actress trying to sell jeans. And the ads themselves are nothing revolutionary. They're kind of playful, punny, riffing on heritage. But what's more interesting is the discourse that comes after it, right? We saw the critics called out the campaign's undertones and saw echoes of, exclusion and eugenics. And the key is the brand's defenders rushed in to insist, like, it's just jeans, don't politicize it. And this is the Bernays trick at scale, right? Establishment perspectives, consumerism, heteronormativity, you name it. Frame them as neutral. Just breakfast, just jeans, just business. Meanwhile, any critique of those default ideas gets painted as disruption or too political. And again, that's not accidental. That's propaganda or consent at work. And it's the exclusion piece of some products are only for certain kinds of people. Or if you don't have this or don't buy this or use this service, you're not in the in group. You're not one of us. right? And that's the challenge with some of these campaigns, and again, our responsibility as marketers. So what I often talk to my students about is, just knowing that you're being influenced doesn't mean you're safe from it. Just knowing the trick is happening doesn't protect you from being influenced by it. You have to think more critically, ask different kinds of questions, and our brains are wired to respond to signals and patterns automatically long before our rational brain or logic even shows up.
That's so true. And wow, you said that so well. I would love to hear from people in the comments, like, what do you all think about this? But Katherine, I see you nodding. So what's your take on all of this?
Thank you. Yes, super interesting. I love it. It makes me think that marketing is often compared to dark psychology or manipulation. And I think that ties into, a wider conversation we're having around the ethics of marketing and the importance of encouraging positive behavior change. And I think that's where marketing and marketers are so powerful, because we can choose how to convey that message and the intention behind the messaging that we're putting out. And that does start with being very conscious of everything that we're delivering, whether it be a specific type of language, copywriting, is that exclusionary, is it implying certain things? And then, of course, the visuals and every other component to marketing that goes with that. So I think part of that awareness is people educating themselves, reading books like the one you mentioned, which is amazing, and just making sure that we're really checking in with ourselves every step of the way to go, is this in line with the type of world that we really want to start creating?
100%. Like, we just need to be better stewards of our audience and treat people as we want to be treated. So it's just like, do you want people to be like, trying to send you propaganda? No, probably not. But also be a better steward of your audience, meaning understand your audience. I think it was mentioned earlier, understanding their emotions and their pain points. Yes, that's absolutely key. So if you're going to be a good marketer, you should be understanding those things anyway. But that also just like, be a good steward of your audience to know like when they're going to be viewing something, how they might be feeling in that moment, what colors might associate with their mood, what message might sit well with them. Also be good stewards of their data. There's so many things that we can be good stewards to our audience. There's so many ways we can be good stewards to our audience. And I think that like the whole discussion on manipulation and dark psychology is really important, because you just can't put things past anyone these days, and everyone's willing to try everything, especially with AI and deepfakes. So it's really important to get out there and like build trust with your personal brand. Make sure that you understand that people buy from people, not brands. I think is going to be important. But yeah, I digress. Any other reactions on this topic? Because this is a good one.
I think for me, it goes back to the ethics piece. I think there are a lot of us as communicators and marketers, I don't think there are a majority of us sitting in a room thinking, ooh, let's tap into the dark psychology and let's manipulate people, right? But the point is that these tools that we have are powerful. And as marketers and communicators, we're in a really powerful position where we shape the conversation. We shape the culture of so much that people consume. And so we have to know the power of our tools and ethically use them, so that when we do start to notice in a meeting, like, hey, talking about jeans in this way might come off as a little icky to a lot of different communities. Let's pause and ask some more questions or go back to the drawing board. And I wonder if anyone in that room said that. And even if they had, if no one else was thinking that way, how quickly did that person probably get shut down and told, like, you're reading too much into it, like, it's fine, whatever, no one's going to think that. And then next thing you know, as a company, you have a crisis on your hands. So to me, it's the ethics of it all, is know the tools that you have, read the books about them. Like, everyone should own Edward Bernays' book. It's called Propaganda, and it talks about the way he used these tools across advertising and marketing for a century. And the point of having that book is to know that you have a lot of power if you are a marketer and a communicator, and you need to use it in a wise way.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. Thank you so much for sharing that. Would love to hear from the audience. Everyone out there has been quiet. I know we've got 2 people either on YouTube or Twitch. I don't know what's going on LinkedIn. But yeah, what do you all think about this? Like, how do you think that marketers can be better stewards of their audience? Also, like, who are some good examples of brands that are out there being good stewards of their audience? I mean, top of mind, I'm going to think of, I don't know, Rihanna's brand.
Oh yeah, Fenty.
Yeah.
Yes, Fenty. Also, Dove, I think, does a pretty good
Yes.
job.
REI, North Face are 2 that come to my mind.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Any other ethical brands that you think are out? I mean, maybe not. It might not be like ethical brands, like they're not out there like trying to like, I don't know, sell green technology or something, but like ethical in their marketing.
Yeah. Patagonia, that's one I love too.
That's a good one.
Yeah, they're great.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you for those examples. Love to hear from the audience too. Like, who do you think does marketing well out there? Who speaks to their audience? Who's being inclusive? Yeah, always love good examples.
Yeah.
But let's
Oh, and Gap. Gap was sort of the antithesis of the American Eagles ad. So if you go and look at theirs, they did actually a really good job. And it was beautifully done and it was really hip and cool, their recent jeans ad.
Nice.
Excellent.
Ooh, I wish I had some of those ads we could just play on screen right now.
I know.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Well, anything more on this topic before we transition?
Oh, someone asked a question, I think.
Oh, okay. We've got a question from David. He says, in 2026, how will organizations account for the savings with AI and measuring ROI with ethical marketing? Ooh, good question. Who wants to take that one?
Can go around.
Yeah, I mean, Mira, what are your thoughts here?
How will organizations account for the savings with AI and measuring ROI with ethical marketing? Ooh, account for the savings, like in terms of time and cost of people. That's a good question. I think what it will be is deploying people to different roles, at least what I hope it will be. Because I think about this even in my own company of we're starting to use AI as a helpful tool in terms of our writing and even being more inclusive with our language in terms of the pieces and the products that we produce out there in the world. And what it's meant is that we're able to deploy different staff to other elements of the business that help us serve clients really well. And my hope is that more companies will take that tact as opposed to sort of cutting many staff loose. I think that there's a lot more that can be done on the creative side that AI could never touch. I think about all of the creatives who design and who write and make these beautiful things that represent culture and people and ideas in the world. And there's so much nuance of what people bring in terms of their identity to the creative that they do that AI could never. So I hope that that's how companies start to account for it, is use the humans for things and nuance that they can tap into that a machine never really could, because the cultural piece, AI can never imagine in the way that we can as humans who've actually experienced the world and each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. I love that answer.
Yeah, Catherine, what's your answer there?
Great question, David. I was going to add to this as well by saying that another element to consider is tagging on to what we were saying, the idea that potentially instead of solving small problems like how to fix the funnel, how to fix the page, all these sort of day-to-day tactical elements that should hopefully be automated and become more and more streamlined as AI gets more intelligent, we can be using humans to think more critically and solve real-world problems. So it kind of basically maximizes the things that we do great at as humans, which is more like non-linear thinking and out-of-the-box creativity and all of those good things, and channel our resources and humanity into resolving that side of things rather than how can we get this person to fix this broken link. Hopefully AI can do more of that stuff and we can focus on the good stuff.
Yes. Oh, so beautifully said. I love that. 100%. Hopefully we can do that. I agree with both of those. I love the idea of marketers being able to spend more time on things that matter in the world, things that will matter to their audience. So like, I don't know, let's say like Fenty, maybe they spend time on sourcing better, more sustainable chemicals or ingredients that they put into their makeup, which I think she already does, and then marketers can market that. We can spend time marketing the good, the ethical things, the sustainability of things, the inclusive things, the things that are going to make the world a better place. I think that's beautiful, and that'd be a really great place to take this. But any other thoughts on that question before we move on? Great
I was
question.
going to add, because there was an element around how to actually account for the savings in the question that David asked.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of accounting for that, we could be looking, there's a big question around productivity at the moment and how AI is enhancing productivity / replacing. And I think that we would be able to measure it in some capacity by looking at, okay, well, if it took that person, 4 hours to do something that is now kind of techie and fiddly and can be resolved with AI, where can we channel that person's time instead that is more directly supporting ROI in both the impact side of it and the tangible ROI, and then all the other benefits of marketing, of course. So yeah, I think that might be a potential direction where we could start measuring and taking account the savings from AI.
100%. Yeah. Yes. And, if I were to put on my, I don't know, take off my more idealistic hat, but on more of my business realist hat, I would say marketing, we probably need to also get a little more focused on revenue and what our impact is on revenue and how humans can optimize the AI to better understand, because at the end of the day, I think a lot of the stuff we talk about, it is all well and good, and we do need a brand, and it does tie back in the long run. It takes time. But directly, I think that will give marketing more credibility even now, is how do we tie back the revenue we're bringing in to marketing, or how do we, and then so that we can replicate marketing and have it generate more revenue. But anyway, I digress. Any other thoughts on that? I'm going to move into our fourth topic, if not, which is ethical marketing is not an oxymoron. That's true. It's definitely not. I think actually marketing can be very ethical, and marketing, because, at the end of the day, what makes a good human relationship? Communication, vulnerability, reciprocity. So how does a business do all of that without marketing? Communication comes from marketing. With good relationships, we are overly communicating. The good marketing team, you have over communication with your customers. They know exactly where they stand. So I think this is a really interesting topic. But Katherine, can you kick us off on this?
Thank you. Yes. And it's actually something we've already basically been talking about this whole time. But I think one of the things that's worth considering is when we occasionally, whether it be accidentally or not, or because we're not being mindful enough, when we accidentally plant the seeds of a product in the consumer's mind. So if we go right back to marketing basics of someone is first triggered into realizing there's a pain or a lack, whether it be in that identity or their desired state. And that's kind of what gets them on this journey of oh, I want to purchase this thing, or I want to investigate what it might look like to resolve this problem. And so something I've noticed that marketing can do when used in not maybe the best way is plant the seeds of a problem that doesn't actually exist for that person. So the example I like to use is dandruff. Now, dandruff is a real thing that happens, but is it actually a real problem? Not necessarily, right? It's not the end of the world. It's not this massive thing that needs to be shamed or cured for years and years. Head and Shoulders is such a great example. And so I think, and there's so many other beauty examples that I can think of as well. But I think we need to be so mindful of, is this an actual problem that we want to be encouraging and putting out in this world? Or are we kind of making up a problem and then perpetuating that as a doubt or insecurity in that person's mind, so we can then sell the product through our marketing messaging? So that's just one example, but I'm sure you can think of plenty of others where it's almost the marketing almost creates a need for that product when that product may have not even needed to exist or be perpetuated in a negative light in the first place.
That's interesting. Amira, what are your thoughts there?
I love it. I mean, I'm aligned with you. Every single word. Unethical marketing extracts value unethical marketing expands markets by helping people make better decisions for things they actually need. Like as soon as you mentioned the dandruff piece, I immediately thought eye drops. And there's actually like so many TikToks right now about how actually you don't need eye drops, and your optometrist would tell you that, like, stop using that. You're actually drying your eyes out more. Or Botox. Sometimes your skin is just dry and unhydrated, and you can actually fix that with an over-the-counter really good moisturizer, and you might not actually have as many wrinkles right here at the crow's feet than you think. You might just be dehydrated. So it made me think of that immediately when you mentioned like creating problems that may not actually exist, and we create this urgency and even sort of these fear-based claims that drive people to make these buying decisions because of the way we're marketing things. And you're so right that sometimes those actually aren't big problems, or they're problems that can be solved really simply with a much cheaper and more economical or ethical product, like just drinking more water instead of eye cream, which is essentially just moisturizer.
So true.
Yeah, it is true. Absolutely. I mean, you're kind of speaking to me too. And I'm like, yeah, I probably just need moisturizer, not more Botox. You're probably right. Just need to treat
Right, or just try a few things out before you spend your hard-earned dollars on, a problem. You might not actually have a problem with your skin. Actually, just drink some more water.
Yes, it's true. Darn marketers, they're so good. They sold
So good, yes. And imagine what we could do if we used our powers only for good.
Yes.
Yes, I love that.
Yeah, no, I really like how you summarized it. Can you say that again, Amir? So it was like,
I said unethical marketing extracts value. Ethical marketing expands markets by helping people make better decisions on what they buy and what they need.
Absolutely. Which ultimately helps the business too, because you don't want to be selling to people who don't necessarily need your product or service. So if marketing can better educate people, yes, that is highly ethical. I love that. Anything else, Katherine, you would say to wrap us up on this topic?
Yeah, I think from the comms or more of a tactical side of things, when you're creating a campaign, you could be thinking about, where am I adding scarcity or urgency tactics where it's not actually necessary, or where it's sort of pushing someone in a way that feels forced. I mean, I know we can do it in a way that doesn't feel forced, but you know what I mean? Inside, we know that we're pushing this. So I think just kind of checking in with ourselves throughout that process and just sort of feeling our way through it. But on a more tactical basis, I think it's worth considering whether, if you're using a certain tactic. I work with a lot of like course-based people, and they'll say like, this course expires in 24 hours, get it now or it's gone forever. And then 6 weeks later, they're rerunning the same promo. It's stuff like this that we can avoid. We can chat to the founders, we can chat to the boss, the CEO, whatever, and say, look, we can still market this, but we don't need to use this scarcity tactic to force someone into purchase. Let's try this other approach instead, which is just as effective. And actually it buys longer term consumers in a better way, because chances are they might not purchase then, and then they get annoyed when they see 6 weeks later it's on sale or whatever it may be. So it's almost like encouraging people to think long-term nurturing as well as short-term, instead of just short-term at all costs, including irritating savvy customers.
Irritating savvy customers. Definitely don't do that. Yeah, no, great thoughts. And I would, again, love to hear from the audience here. If anyone's tuning in, you have any thoughts, let us know you're here. Just say hi in the comments. We've had a couple of good comments. Would love to see some more, but that pretty much wraps us up on our topics. I guess before we transition into the guru of the week, anything else either of you would like to add on anything to sum up this conversation? I think we did a great job, and I love how we transitioned into ethical marketing. It's such a good topic. You can talk that all day. There's a guy on LinkedIn. I forget what his name is, but I think he calls himself like the good marketer or something like, or good marketing. And he writes a lot about ethical marketing. It's really good content. I highly suggest it. I'll have to find it and drop it in the chat. But I think it's time to transition to the guru of the week. Ooh. We want to know, I mean, we just spent the last hour getting inspired by you. So we want to know who inspires you. Could both of you tell us why we should go follow your guru of the week?
I'm happy to start. I am recommending Lauren Friedman. She has a background in ad tech, and she is a very savvy marketer. And she is since pivoting to focus on trauma-informed healing. And she does it in a way that is so relatable, so funny, charming, modern, and just the kind of conversation that I think we've all been craving, because we have all been in a toxic work environment, or we've all been in a situation that has dysregulated our nervous system and not known how to return to that baseline. And so I really love the fact that she brings that marketing savvy approach to a conversation that is otherwise quite heavy, and she does it in a way that's relatable and easy to implement in our day-to-day life. So 100% recommend what she's building. Please go check her out on the WIGO project and follow for more.
Beautiful. And then my guru is Dr. Anastasia Karklina Gabriel, and she is a author of a book called Cultural Intelligence for Marketers. She's a thought leader, a culture critic, and she is really known for a lot of her great narratives about shaping today's society and how we do that, and definitely from both a academic perspective, but also a lived one. And she is everywhere from Forbes to Teen Vogue. She's even gone toe-to-toe recently on, what's his name? I think it's Tucker Carlson, who was very mean to her, talking about culture today and where things are. And she's a wonderful voice for impact and justice in the world and more inclusion. So Dr. Karklina Gabriel is a wonderful person to follow and one of the best marketers out there.
Amazing. Incredible. Thank you both for sharing. I know Lauren. So Lauren, I'm excited that she's the guru of the week. We can definitely have to tag her in the comments. But yeah, Lauren Friedman is great. Haven't heard of Dr. Anastasia yet, but she sounds amazing. Anyone who can go head to head with Tucker Carlson, she's got to be my but yeah, we've got to tag both of them and get them both on the show, man. That would be amazing. But anyway, no, that was a great segment. Thank you both so much for sharing. But before we go, we want to learn a little bit more about both of you. Could you both tell us exactly what it is you do, like who you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you? Could you kick us off, Amira?
Yeah, absolutely. So I often describe myself as a behavioral change and behavioral communications consultant. I can help you be bold, brief, and brilliant, but I really help companies think about how to move people towards behavior change at scale. I was very busy during the days of COVID, for example, getting people to remember to wash their hands. And so if you heard someone say, sing the happy birthday song twice, those kinds of ideas and campaigns are things that I do to get people to change their behavior at scale for the betterment of everyone around them. That's what I can help you do. And you can find me always at amirabarger.com. And I keep things really simple on every single social channel. I'm just at Amira Barger. It's just my name. And I do a really fun TikTok comms class that's been really popular lately. So you can find me there talking all things communications, marketing, and media relations.
Ooh, I love that. I'm on TikTok as well, so I'll go look for you right after this. And Katherine, same for you. We want to know more about you, who you serve, how you serve them, and if they could be served by you, how do they reach you?
Thank you. Yes, we specialize in supporting the health and wellness industry, and we typically work with conscious or impact-driven founders who are looking to scale up their business through marketing and strong messaging. And we are especially good at PR and comms. So whether you want to go on to building your thought leadership, becoming a new author and getting that book out there, or becoming a world-renowned speaker, or simply just unifying your branding and messaging and getting that message on media coverage of all sizes, we are your go-to. So feel free to reach out to us. You can find us at www.catalystbrandstrategy.com, and I offer a complimentary sample session where we go through some of your current goals and put together a holistic approach on how to get there in terms of marketing. So yes.
I love that. Well, anyone would be lucky to work with either of you. And I was super lucky to have both of you on the show, especially together. This was an amazing conversation. So thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yes,
Absolutely.
thank you.
Yes. And just real quick before we go, we've got another great episode planned for next week. We'll throw that up here on the screen real quick. Jennifer Galbraith and Muhammad Nagori. So Jennifer is president of Alestra Marketing, and Muhammad is head of marketing at Convergent X Connections. So another marketing conversation here on WinsDay. It's going to be a great one. But until then, I hope everyone has a great week. Again, Amira and Katherine, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you coming on. I've learned a lot myself. It's good to go back and think about the actual impact we get to make as marketers. And, it's even fun to think about, the political side of it. I'll call it, or like propaganda, because we really do have a lot of power and we get to harness that power for good. So thanks for that reminder.
Thank you.
And with that, that's a wrap on another WinsDay. Have a good Wednesday, everyone.